Hey, Typology Tribe, it's that time again. Here we are in the Typology Studios.
Hey, Ian, how are you?
It's like we never leave here.
Isn't it?
It's amazing. But I'm never sad to be here in the Typology Studio with you, Anthony Skinner.
Same. And we are super excited today because we've got a really special guest that we've been working on for a while to get our schedules linked together. He's showing up today.
That's right. The great Louie Giglio is on with us today.
Come on.
Now, here's where this is going to get interesting.
Yes.
Okay. So I know that Louie didn't know his number until yesterday.
Right.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
So that means that, and I'm not going to do the big reveal right now as to what his type is.
Yeah.
But he's coming in like, with a limited amount of information about the Enneagram.
Yeah.
He's a tremendously self-aware person.
Yeah, someone who's done a lot of work.
He's done a lot of work.
Yes.
But we're going to be with somebody for whom the Enneagram and learning about his type, it's all going to be fresh, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a lot of questions for him. And, I think we've never done a show where someone is basically coming in saying, hey, I just took the IEQ-9 yesterday.
Right.
I just read about my type last night. I'm assuming that's what he's going to say.
Yeah.
Let's talk about my type.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be great.
So everyone, if you don't know who Louie is, he's pastor of Passion City Church. He's the original visionary behind the Passion Movement. This is a guy who has spoken and speaks in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes.
He's written a number of books. And I can't wait for folks to learn more about him. And I can't wait for him to learn more about him.
Yes.
Today, as we jump into this show with the wonderful Louie Giglio. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Louie Giglio, welcome to Typology.
So good to be with you, Ian. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I have looked forward to this interview for a long time. I know we've tried to make it work on a few occasions and we've missed each other, but here we are.
Hey, today's our day, and I'm really pumped about it. This interview spurred me on to actually find out where I fit on the Enneagram, and so thank you for that. And I feel like I have just joined civilization today.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And you actually learned your type from my IEQ-9 test, right?
I did, and thank you for that. Yep, and we'll let people know what that is a little bit later. We'll keep the suspense going as long as possible. But I thought I must be whichever type doesn't like to take tests. That's the type I was convinced I was. And I'm 61 and a half years old, so I have that sort of internal thing that says, hey, wait it out. There'll be a day when people aren't taking the Enneagram anymore. And then I realized this is an ancient thing. It's been around for like centuries and centuries and centuries. So I am now a identified Enneagram type, and I'm very excited to dive in to find out what that means and how I can become a better person because of it.
Well, this is exciting because you've now only just learned your type. And do you want to do the big reveal?
Okay, drum roll, everybody. Are we ready?
All right. Yep.
I am not a number 9. And I'm going to be perfectly transparent for a minute, and then people can laugh. If you're driving, I encourage you to pull over because you're going to laugh at me so hard right now. You're going to wreck your car or wet your pants or both. But I took your test, and I got the results back on my phone. And so I'm looking. I don't have great eyesight without my glasses. I'm looking down, and it says IEQ 9. IEQ 9. Everything's IEQ 9. IEQ 9. 9, 9, 9, 9. And I just think it says, in first glance, that I'm a 9. So I start reading about the 9s before I investigate more. And I'm like, man, I'm telling you, that does not sound like me, but I'm open to it.
Yeah, in fact, you could not be further from a 9 than like the difference between Pluto and Mirth.
My wife is in the room. She says, "Well, what does it say?" I said, "Well, it says that I'm a 9, that I'm a peacemaker." And she's like, "Oh, really?" And and then I read the short description, and she goes, "Yeah, no, that's not you." So I read a little further, and I go, "Oh, okay, I'm not a 9. I'm actually a 3." And that made a little bit more sense. So welcome to the world of 3s.
Man, indeed. 3s, the achievers, sometimes called the performers. 3s, how do they see the world? 3s see a world in which people are only valued for what they do rather than for who they are inside. Okay? So 3s, along with 2s...
Boy, that sounds like a big negative right off the bat.
Okay, so great. So here's the deal. The Enneagram, one of the things that makes it so cool is it reveals that what's best about you is what's worst about you, and what's worst about you is what's best about you.
Great.
Right? So it's not only, I mean, who doesn't want to do a test called Strengths Finder? You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, that sounds good to me no matter what. But what makes the Enneagram so cool is it reveals that which is beautiful and that which is broken about us. So yeah, you'll hear some stuff today as we talk about 3 that might make you grimace a little bit, but hopefully also make you feel like, holy smokes, I really am created in the remarkable image of God.
Yeah, that's cool. How do you determine, and I know this is going to be a little bit later in the podcast, but how do you know which of your wings is your wing?
Okay, great question. So there are 2 numbers adjacent to yours. So
that's
in your
right.
case, right. So in your case, it would be 4 or 2.
Yep.
Okay. So you could only have a 3 with a 4 wing or a 3 with a 2 wing. You can't have a 3 with a 7 wing or a 3 with a 6 wing. It's got to be 4 or 2.
But how do you know which one you're more leaning towards, the 2 or the 4 in my case?
Right.
I mean, I think I know, but how do I really know? Because you didn't tell me that, and I'm really counting on you.
Oh, man. Listen, let me help you out, okay? So the 3 with a 4 wing has, the 4 is called the individualist. Sometimes they're called the romantic. They tend to measure self-worth through achievement, especially in terms of career. They tend to hide inner struggles about their personal value, They are much more in touch with shame than a 3 with a 2 wing would have. And I could go on and on, but another thing I would say is 3s are is an image conscious number, right? It projects an image of success. So that's very important to the 3, right? To project or craft a persona that signals to other people, I'm a success, because 3s actually kind of equate success with love unconsciously.
Wow.
So the more successful I am, the more loved I am. That's sort of an unconscious thing that's going on. Now, the 4 has a real hang up about authenticity, right? So being original and authentic is terribly important to the 4. So if you are a 3 with a 4 wing, typically you're a little tortured, right? Because, all right, so you speak in front of huge crowds all the time, right?
Yeah.
When you walk off stage, is there ever a little voice in your head that says, yeah, Louie, you're kind of a fraud. You kind of like pulled the wool over people's eyes again. And do you ever have that experience?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that, to me, possibly could indicate a 3 with a 4 wing, because your 4 authentic side is prosecuting your 3 image crafting side and kind of wagging its finger.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
If you were a 3 with a 2 wing, there'd be a little bit different. Your focus would be on gaining admiration while sort of helping via other people via personal achievement, You'd be probably more extroverted than a 3 with a 4. etc. But it does sound to me like you're a 3 with a 4 wing, possibly.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to let people know also at the top of the podcast, I'm not charging anyone for them sitting in on my therapy today. It's all free and it's all gratis on me.
Yeah, but my meter's running, and so, someone's going to pay. Hey everybody, one of the lessons I've learned over the years is that not everybody benefits from a traditional 50-minute counseling session. And this is why some people can go to couples therapy or personal counseling for a long time and never really get anywhere. This is why I'm such a believer of intensive counseling and my friends at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, created by my longtime friend Michael Cusick to help couples or individuals experience deep change in half-day blocks over 1 or 2 weeks. Now listen, if you can't wait months or years to get to the bottom of an issue or to experience breakthrough, you need to get in touch with my friend Michael and his extraordinary team of counselors at Restoring the Soul. If you're looking to get out of the rut you're in, but can't wait months or years, call Restoring the Soul today for a free consultation with Michael's staff. Call 303-932-9777 and learn how their intensive counseling process can help you. As a special bonus, just for Typology listeners, make sure to visit www.restoringthesoul.com/typology to download their PDF called 5 Ways Unaddressed Trauma May Be Derailing Your Relationships. Okay, so when you started to read about 3, what was your inner experience like? Was it positive, negative, neutral? What were you feeling?
Well, when you start, fortunately, in the material, the report I've gotten, this IEQ9 report is so thorough that it comes with all the positive first. And so that's very good. If you're a 3, you're liking all that positive. Then when it starts talking about how you can be perceived or how other people perceive you, and what your weaknesses are, obviously it's kind of like, that mirror gets pretty clear. So I liked it in general. I've never really loved the term A-type. I'm around some A-types and I don't necessarily love them. No offense. But I do identify with a lot of it, and I like to see things happen. And I believe that part of my gift in life, Ian, has been to help things happen, to really bring about things that other people didn't believe were possible. And so I like kind of landing in that zone where that seems to live. And I felt great about it.
Yeah.
I got a lot of work to do based on some of my initial reading, because I've still got some time left on Earth. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I guess you get asked this a lot, but in the Enneagram, you come to terms with your strengths, you get face to face with your weaknesses. How much commitment do you feel like anyone should make to lifting up all the weaknesses versus really just embracing the fact that this is what my strengths are? And under in the grace of God, of course, we all want that humility and that sense of kindness that God has bestowed on us. But how much energy do we need to really get hung up on not being what we are?
Yeah. So I think one of the beautiful things about the Enneagram is it helps us pay attention to what's happening in our interior world in such a way that we might become our more, this is going to sound a little cliched, our more authentic God-created self. And we might, in business parlance, we might call that self-awareness, emotional intelligence, where we develop, I think, an interior witness that in real time can monitor and regulate and mitigate our weaknesses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that our strengths can come to the fore.
Yeah.
So many people just live on autopilot. You know that. That's part of the message, I think, of Scripture, right? Is
yeah.
Wake up, live wide awake.
Yeah.
And so I love the Enneagram because I think it helps people live with more conscious awareness so that they just don't waste time in sleep mode.
Yeah, one of the great wisdom texts I think in Scripture is it says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And that's what I thought about when you said that about this 3-4, war that might be going on inside somebody who's a high achiever, wants to come across as looking like they've got it all under control, but yet has a desire to be authentic and an individual. And you were saying, I might get finished with a talk and have this little internal battle going on. And I think that the first thing I thought when you said that was that verse, a double-minded man isn't just unstable in that moment, but that instability tends to work its way out in their whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, I'm a big fan of Thomas Merton. Merton's been a huge sort of influence on my spiritual journey. And he would say for himself, this is a quote from Merton, "For me, to become a saint means to become myself." And I think what he meant by that was that when we are truly ourselves, that's when we are most bringing glory to God. Human beings are the only creatures in all the earth who can pretend to be something other than who they are and what they are, right? My dog cannot do that. An oak tree cannot pretend to be an elm tree, right?
Exactly.
But humans can hide behind all kinds of masks, and they do, right? And the Enneagram reveals the mask, right? And says, what would it be like if you could come and live out in the open without all these adaptive strategies you picked up as a kid to protect yourself, which in the end only prevents you from being yourself?
Yeah. Man, that's pretty profound. I like that. I was thinking, about my ultimate goal in life, and I've been wrestling with this a little bit. I'd love to hear what you think about it. But, I encourage people and teach and preach, to use our church term, to be the best version of who God made you to be, to go after the best dream that God created for you. Because God made us all for purpose, right? He made us all to have a great sense of purpose and destiny. But I wonder, where is that fine line for me, Ian, between wanting to be the best version of Louie Giglio and then yet being like Christ, which is really what I'm called to be the most clearly through Scripture?
Yeah. So let me go back to that. There's a lot of different ways, as you know, that we could probably parse that question. But I would just go back to that Merton idea and say, when you are most truly yourself, that is when you are most purely like Christ in you. Because as long as the mask is on, it is obscuring Christ in you.
Wow,
and
that's right.
So I think, that's part of how the Enneagram, because here's the other thing, right? When we tell people, we want you to be the best version of yourself, I think part of the frustration they have is, yeah, but how? How would I know once I was there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The truth is that our true self is not a thing at all, right? It's like you're never actually going to fully arrive at, because the human person is more of a process than a thing. Does that make sense? We're constantly changing, constantly evolving. If we take Scripture seriously, God is still creating us or co-creating us, right? With our consent. So, I think the beauty of the Enneagram is it's one of many tools. It's not magic. It's not the only tool I recommend to people to use as a piece of spiritual technology, right?
Yeah.
But what I do tell them is, hey, this is a great way for you to develop self-knowledge. And as Calvin said, without self-knowledge, there is no knowledge of God.
Wow.
So that's where I think the value is in it. And I think that's how the Christ in you can become more visible to others, is by, hey, let's let go of the game attached to my threeness so that my true self can emerge.
Yeah. Man, I couldn't affirm more what you're saying. saying, Ian, and man, I resonate so much with what you're saying. I think, one of the things you mentioned, strength finders earlier, and I think trying to think back to like 15 years ago. It seems like everyone I knew did strength finders, including me. And I'm sure I sat in 4 or 5 leadership groups where we had some strengths finder expert come in and get our team together and all that. And it was all helpful. Everything you really put your mind to can be helpful. But I think as Enneagram came along, I was less eager to get on board again. Here comes the next thing, and it's going to tell me something else about myself. But I was amazed. I have to say, Ian, probably more than anything I've been amazed by in culture at how strongly, defiantly committed to Enneagram the millennials are, and Gen Z particularly. And man, if I were to say in a setting somewhere along the way, hey, I haven't taken the Enneagram, I'm not kidding. People just were like, I'm done with you. You are dead to me from this point forward. I don't know you, and I have no time for you. I'm not exaggerating when I say I've seen that look on people's face. And why do you think it is that Enneagram speaks so powerfully to the millennial generation? Or do you think it does? I mean, is that a valid question even?
Yeah, no, I think it is. Hey, everybody, we'll be back to our guest in just a moment. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Hemp Fusion. Hey, Anthony.
Yes.
Do you know I have arthritis in my hands from writing and typing?
I do.
And did you know I've added CBD to my daily routine to help reduce inflammation?
You have?
That's right, man. And I use Hemp Fusion. Unlike other brands who just offer CBD, Hemp Fusion combines CBD plus omegas, plus terpenes, plus other natural ingredients to help your body absorb CBD better. Hemp Fusion is available at natural product retailers near you and online. And for our Typology listeners, Anthony,
tell us, Ian.
They'll get 20% off their first order and free shipping anywhere in the U.S. at hempfusion.com. All they have to do is enter their promo code Typology. Again, that's hempfusion.com and the promo code Typology. Back to our guest. Years ago, when I first learned the Enneagram in the 1990s, the person I learned it from used to say that the Enneagram wasn't very useful until the second half of life, when you have exhausted all the nonsense of your type. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so good.
And you used to, at that point, you're like beginning to ask more, if the first half of life is the parable of the talents, the second half of life is the prodigal of the son. Right. And you're beginning to ask different questions in the second half of life. It's not, what's my adequacy? How can I kick ass and prove to the world that I'm really, gifted and blah, blah, blah. Now it's more like, how do I go home? How do I forgive?
Yeah.
How do I get ready to die? Really? But I think times have changed. I think, I have kids who are millennials and Gen Zs and these kids seem to me, given like the levels of depression and anxiety, and I think cultural trauma, I think the second half of life now is no longer 40. I think it can happen much earlier in our culture. And then secondly, so it's applicable to then millennials and Gen Zs. I also think that they're a very self-reflective bunch, and who doesn't want to know and be known? Who doesn't want to understand the wreckage and the wonder in the rearview mirror of their lives?
Wow. Yeah, I think probably threes don't.
Well, you raise an interesting point.
I have spent so little time looking in the rearview mirror of my life. In fact, when I do introspect and when I am reflective, the question I raise a lot, Ian, is why don't I spend more time looking in the rearview mirror? Because I'm not sure if I've spent a collective hour looking in the rearview mirror in my life.
this is going to be really good, Louie. Oh, I'm feeling good inside. My inner therapist is going, I found a friend. So number one, every number has a relationship with time, okay? A different relationship with time. And threes are very future-oriented people. You are always thinking out into the future as to what is the next task I have to complete? What is the next thing I have to do? Now, I'm a 4, right? My orientation is more toward the past, which is why, I write songs, I write memoirs. I tend to be more reflective about issues like, I'm much more in touch with feelings typically than a 3 is, right? And I speak from that center. So 3s, 8s, 7s, those are the 3 most assertive numbers on the Enneagram. All 3 of you really struggle with self-reflection. It's just not, by temperament, I think, not natural to you, right? So part of the growth for a 3 is learning how to stop long enough to put down the to-do list and the how do I craft the right persona thing to be able to self-reflect and ask the question, who am I? Where have I come from? And before going by default directly into the future. It isn't to say forget the future. It's just to say, to ask, dare I say it, more existential questions without becoming self-absorbed.
Yeah.
So if I were working with you as your spiritual director or therapist, one of the things that I would be trying to get you to do. One
That's
of the things
on my resume as of right now.
Well, I'm not sure what that's going to get you in terms of anywhere, but I would say that it's one of the challenges for 3s is to move them when they're unhealthy. Okay, so remember there are levels of health. There are self-aware healthy 3s and ones that are not doing any work at all. So if you're not doing any work at all, like probably when you were a young man, tell me if I'm correct, you were probably more in your worst moments concerned with appearance than you were with substance. Does that sound true? Or?
Yeah, it's probably moderately true.
Okay. So as you begin to do your work, we want to start to invert that formula and begin to think about our interior world. You might begin to think about issues of how can I live from not just a doing space, but from a feeling space? Because 3s typically, I hate to tell you this, are the number on the Enneagram that have the most trouble identifying their own feelings and the feelings of others. Mm-hmm. They really struggle to name what they have. Tons of feelings, they just don't know what to call them.
Yeah,
right. And also just helping you learn. Let me put it this way: Evelyn Underhill was a great Christian thinker of the 20th century, and she once said that we spend most of our lives conjugating the verb to do, when the fundamental verb of the spiritual life is to be.
Yeah.
So teaching a 3 how to be, not just do.
Yeah. It's interesting you saying that, Ian, because I think for me, just looking back across all the way to my earliest days, like some of my most amazing days of my life were college era when I wasn't speaking. I didn't have a platform of any kind. I rode a bus to school downtown to commute to university every day. And, my influences were heavy, like Richard Foster type people.
Contemplatives.
That's where I came from. And probably on the spiritual side, more people like a A.W. Tozer, than hey, let's go, a Billy Sunday. Let's go tell everybody the story of Jesus and win as many people as possible. And I came from a contemplative space. And I think even to this day, when I am more in touch with Jesus and more committed to the way of Jesus, I think I do tend more to the best side of whatever you're talking about. And when my relationship with Jesus is on a little bit more thin ice because of my choices or schedule or whatever, I definitely see myself over here in this other space. And I think the barometer is my space meter and how much space I'm giving, not just to be reflective, but to reflect on Him and reflect on the things that are ultimate and the things that matter most.
Man, that is powerful. And I think of two things that I tell people about the Enneagram and how, and like I said, and I want to make this clear to everybody, it is not a standalone tool. I want everybody to use all the spiritual disciplines, not just the Enneagram, which is when people first learn it, that becomes their tendency for a little while, right? On my car, I have this lane warning departure thing, so that if I start to drift out of my lane, my steering wheel starts to vibrate, right? And I often like to think of the Enneagram as being my lane detection warning system. When I start to leave my lane, right, because of the self-knowledge that I've gained from the Enneagram, my steering wheel starts to shake and says, are you sure you want to change lanes? Because there may be a collision involved if you do, And so I think it can be really helpful, knowing when you are in a good space and when you are about to leave a good space.
Yeah. That lane warning thing gets turned on somehow. I don't know who turns it on. Angels possibly, or
right.
But I've never turned it on, but it's on all of a sudden. And threes only really care about how fast they can get that thing turned off.
Yes.
They're not that interested in why it's on or what it's protecting them from or saving them from. They are like, how did this get on? And it needs to get off right now.
Yes.
And I think that, that has definitely been the best and the worst thing about my life. And fortunately, I don't live alone. I've got a phenomenal wife, and she's been the best thing that God's ever given to me. And I've always been blessed, Ian, like you, with just extraordinary people around me. Just an extraordinary team of people currently and always have had just the best and the brightest people. And they help me to the degree that I let them, keep things within the lanes within reason. But a guy like me and a lot of threes listening today are saying, hey, I don't want any lane warnings because, give Steve Jobs a lane warning and we don't have the iPhone in our hand right now, or you and I are not on FaceTime right now. So just talk to me a little bit today about the balance, because I feel like when you said before that threes think about the next task or the next thing to do, I rarely think about tasks and I rarely think about things to do because I'd like to couch it in better terms because I want to think better of myself. I want to think about the next thing that hasn't been done yet. And that is a task, but it's more of a vision. It's more of a wish, I guess, that something could be different, not just for me, but they could benefit the greater common good for all people. And how would you encourage threes to, that have that sense right now, and maybe are even pushing back a little bit on anything that would restrict them from, doing something that everybody else has said can't be done?
Thank you. It's an amazing question, and I happen to have an answer for it based on something I read only recently. I've been doing a study on St. Augustine.
All right. Well, I hope you have enjoyed part 1 of our 2-part series with author, speaker, pastor, and Enneagram 3 Louie Giglio. You're going to have to tune in next week to catch the answer to his last question. And next week, we even take a deeper dive into the world and the redemption of those who identify as an Enneagram 3. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you've enjoyed it. That's it for me, Anthony Skinner, from Ian and myself. Hey, we wish you a fantastic week. See ya.